I'm Professor Boyd Craig, and with my co-host and friend and co-professor, Lord Michael Hastings, we warmly welcome you to the Principled Leaders of the World series. Lord Hastings joins us today from England, where he resides, and serves in the British Parliament as a lifetime peer in the House of Lords. Our special guest today, Kenny Imafidon, co-founder and executive director of Clearview Research in London. Welcome, Kenny.
Thank you. How you doing?
Doing great. So happy you're here. We're going to have a great conversation together, and I'm especially excited for our students to get to know you and your story. We'd love to begin by showing a short Becoming X film that captures your core story. And then we'll come back and launch in with that backdrop with some questions for you. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking forward to people seeing it for the first time.
Quite a story. I'm so struck by your line when you're writing your story, your life story, make sure you're holding the pen. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing that video with us. It's quite inspiring. I'm wondering if you could help us by processing a little bit about your story. You know, it takes a lot of character to come through a wrongful charge that held you captive in prison and could have had you locked away for up to 30 years. How did you handle the emotions, the inevitable anger and sense of loss from the deceit and neglect of public officials?
Yeah, so that's a very important question. I would say for me personally, the truth is just I felt like during my time in prison is really a time where I felt God's presence and a real sense of his perfect peace, which it talks about in Philippians chapter 4, verse 7, this real sense of peace that surpasses all human understanding. And for me, during that moment there, and that during that time, there's no other reason to explain how I was able to overcome the sense of the amount of pressure on me and the anger and everything else. And I would say there were times where even other prison guards would see me, even during the trial, and they'll look at me like, why are you so upbeat? And why do you look so happy and everything else? Because obviously they knew my circumstance and what was happening. But I just really felt at peace that, you know what, hey, God will see me through this. As I talk about in the video, right? It's something which I prayed about. I'm not claiming to say, okay, this was just an easy ride. And it was extremely tough, right? I could be out when I was 47, and at the time I was just 18 years old. Right? And that's if I'm lucky, right? It's a minimum 30 years. And yeah, so for me, it was just, really building that relationship with God. That for me, that was really fundamental for me on that journey and how I could hold myself together.
Very good. You know, your story is at the extreme end of the scale. I mean, here you are wrongfully imprisoned for a murder. And so, and you're in prison, you know, talk about dire circumstances. The students we're with today will have their own set of really tough challenges in life. They may not end up in prison, wrongfully imprisoned, but they'll have their own deep tests. I wonder if you could share with them in the moment of this time that you were in prison. Could you share with us a little bit about your daily habits and practices that invited this spirit of peace and calm in your life amid total chaos and darkness in prison?
Yeah, no, of course. So for me, I would say, like, before I came to prison in the first place, I was very self-sufficient, right? There's a lot of things which I felt that I was able to do and I could do, right? I had money, I could look after myself, I could do whatever, right? I would say I knew God and I believe there was a God that existed, but there was no real sense of relationship. And I would say prison was the first time where I was truly broken and really at a point where I couldn't just rely on myself to help myself in the situation.
Mhm.
And that was for me extremely humbling. And I think a lot of times, even in the deepest of troubles and chaos, there's always that silver lining, right? In terms of what you begin to learn about yourself. And for me, I really used that time because it's funny, I tell people about thinking, but it's very different when you have all day to think, as in 23 hours a day in a cell to think and nothing else. You get tired of crap TV shows and anything else, and you just have so much time to think. It's very unusual. The normal person, you're dying to even find 30 minutes, an hour to think. So imagine having all that time. And so for me, I spent a lot of time thinking about myself, my life, the decisions that I've made. And yeah, I was just really being really brutally honest in terms of just how I became the person who I was. And for me, it was really this, and I really felt that real sense of I had to fight, right? So a big thing which I did do in prison was doing my A levels, which is like the exams you do before you go to university. And me doing that for the normal person, that's extremely strange, as I talk about in the video, right? My solicitor and barrister were thinking, why are you going to waste your time doing something like this? But for
Mhm.
me, it was a real sense of like, I had to still place my energy into something which was positive and hopeful and beyond the circumstance, right? Because if I did my A levels, the the fruits of doing that and passing, I'll be able to see on the other side. Whereas
Mhm.
just sitting there not doing anything would have just killed me, to be very honest, in terms of killing my and crushing my own spirit. And I just had to find things and do things and really just, even from a faith perspective, really become a little child again and begin to learn about God and my own beliefs from as a small child again. And so for me, I'll be honest, it's a real sense of being reborn, even as I'm reflecting now and even talking to him. And I do feel that chaos, and when you are at rock bottom, you can't go any further, right? And for me, that was a rock bottom moment in my life. And the only way was really up. I couldn't, it doesn't get worse than that.
Mhm.
So I just had to fight my way through. And I'll be honest, I never knew how strong I was until being strong was my only option in that circumstance.
Hmm. Beautiful. Lord Hastings, why don't you ask the next question?
So, Kenny, here in the UK, we refer to when you're in prison, we say you're held at Her Majesty's pleasure because the prison system is Her Majesty's prisons. But of course, you never saw the Queen turn up in prison. But since you've come out of prison, you've turned up at the Queen's house, Buckingham Palace, twice and have become an advisor to one of the Queen's most important organizations and charities. So how does it feel for you to have a sense of destiny now? Did you have that sense of destiny back then, or did you get it when you came out of prison, or have you grown destiny as time has gone on?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question when you talk about destiny. So I do feel like we are all destined for a purpose, right? And in terms of if there's one creator, he creates all of us for a purpose. And I would say definitely after prison, that purpose it was something that was revealed to me more and more. However, I would say like from young, I've definitely always felt this whole sense. And it's probably, a lot of people probably feel this on the call today where you feel like you can be somebody. And I don't mean somebody in a rock star way, but actually somebody in terms of you're meant to do more, right? And I was always battling with that internal frustration of looking at my circumstance and then also looking at what I feel in my spirit, what I could be doing, and the two just not matching up.
Mhm.
This whole sense of where you can give more, but based on your circumstance, you can't really do more. And I lived with that before I went to prison and even after, right? Because I still had to rebuild. But I would say it's ironic, right? You look back and it's very easy where it looks like a lot of this kind of makes sense. However, at the time when you're going through it, the dots don't connect and a lot of things seem very random. And I know we've talked a lot about like serendipity and things like that. However, I do feel that the the path ahead has been laid, and I think a big part of, I know Boyd mentioned before about character, is making sure that I was developed to have the right character I needed to be able to take up those opportunities that will later come my way. And I feel like now looking back is much easier for me to say it, but at the time is full of a lot of pain and yeah, and torment and everything else. But like you said, right, it's a miracle. Who would ever thought that I would have went to one of the most violent prisons for young offenders to go in Buckingham Palace twice, right? It seems, Cyril, you could have never ever put any bet on that. That's, yeah, I mean, we've got a better chance cancelling Brexit than thinking that's going to happen.
We should have managed that one. So, Kenny, you've now become a very successful businessman. You lead a multi-million-dollar business. You've got a significant number of people working for you. The business is growing. You're also chairman of a nearly $5 million charity. You're on the board of a foundation that gives away over $100 million a year. You're advisor to the Queen's Trust. All of this has happened despite the past. And what kind of habits have you needed to develop so that you can do all of this and stay wholesome?
Yeah, brilliant. Obviously, outside of the 7 habits, which everyone here should know. To be honest, I think for me, a big habit has been that's not mentioned in the 7 habits is just this whole sense of making sure like I'm owning each day, right? And you would know in terms of waking up early, right, and being ahead of the day. I hate rushing from one thing to another, and I know that particularly for a lot of millennials, like we rush to get up, we rush to shower, bath, we rush to get ready, we're rushing to uni, we're rushing to work, we're constantly rushing, right? And whereas if you wake up early, as you know, Lord Hazen, like 5 a.m., 4:45, whatever, you have all this time in the morning where you can do the things you need to do. And those particular habits for me, as you know, are inviting something in my life which affirms my beliefs, as well as listening to a sermon, reading the news, exercise, doing a lot of things. So by the time it gets to 7, 8 a.m., you feel like you've had a great day already. And for me, I've always stuck to that habit. And I feel like as I grow and get older and eventually get to both of your lovely ages, I should be able to still hold on to that. I can share that Lord Hayes is still going strong, waking up earlier than a lot of millennials I know who can't wake up before 7. And to be honest, I would say that's been a very important habit for me. And then also I would say like it's a habit, but it's also just a lifestyle in terms of service as well. I feel like always continuing to remember that actually that there's this everything that's going on is bigger than me, right? And I feel like with all those roles that you've mentioned, they've all come about to me through just serving, and then God has just brought the opportunity. Like these are not things that I sat down, I put down on my vision board and said, this is what I want to do. None of it at all. I never had the Queen, I never had any of these roles sitting on these particular boards. None of this stuff was on my vision board in any way. However, I have just, as you know, done my best to just serve people and do what I can do and have time for people that most people would ignore for whatever reason. As you know, a lot of the work that we do in the prisons, Lord Hastings, you know, for example, that work is virtually unknown. We have no website, we don't promote on social media. We've been doing it for the past 5 years, working with people who are serving life to long-term sentences. And we've just been there for them, supporting them, loving on them, despite their past, despite what they've done. And even in 5 years, there's a lot of them, we don't even know what they're in there for. And because that is actually the least of our worries, right? And for me, I'll be honest, the work and everything else and all the things I get paid to do for me allow me to do all the things which I'm not being paid to do that actually bring me great joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment. Not saying my work doesn't bring that, but there's something special about, for example, like the My Brother Keeper stuff that we do and everything else. So I would say for me, even that habit of service has been brilliant.
Professor Craig, would you like to ask any more questions? Yeah.
So, Kenny, tell us a little bit about your business. What does it mean to work with underrepresented, underserved, marginalized communities, and what kind of research brings out the truth from these communities?
Yeah, so no, thank you. So in terms of a lot of the research that we're doing is very much around how do we work with people in order to ensure that their voices are reflected when decision makers are making decisions, right? So our whole mission as a business at Clearview is to ensure that people are making way more conscious, culturally sensitive, type of decisions, right? And equitable. So for us, it's about how do we ensure that the research industry and how we go about gathering insights is actually equitable. And a big part of that is that if you realize for a long time, particularly with certain communities, people have been doing research, engaging people. However, it's not been an equitable thing. A lot of people go into communities, offer them no sense of value and expect them to give up their time, which is already stretched, and everything else, for example, for free. Whereas for us, we're saying actually these people, it shouldn't be free. And if anything, because of their circumstance, we should actually be paying them a premium. So to give you an example, we're doing a particular project now looking at adolescent mental health, for example. Now, even with the young people we're working with, they are being paid £100 an interview. Now, I'm sure that both Lord Hastings and Boyd, you both know, there's a lot of people who we even know who wouldn't even be paid that type of money to have an interview. Whereas for us, it's about seeing what value are these people bringing and ensuring that they also understand that value, and also working in a way that protects people as well. The danger with research is not enough people that do it ask even their clients or partners, what do you want to do with this insight? As a result, right? People are just gathering it and people can use it for whatever they want. So to give you an example, we've just been commissioned 2 big projects at the moment to look at vaccination and to very much understand in terms of people's choice, their perceptions and everything. Now we are working with various stakeholders, and one of the narratives that we are challenging is this, that, and we see the same thing in the States, that a lot of people are from Black and minority ethnic communities but they're called hesitant. Now the danger with even that narrative, that it takes away this whole important conversation around, first and foremost, particularly in the UK, vaccines are not mandated, so you legally do not have to take it anyway, first and foremost. And secondly, it speaks into this whole thing about what Black Lives Matter was about, that we have there's something in Western culture where anything different is seen as wrong. And actually it's about embracing there are people from other communities where they have a different approach to health and how they go about looking after themselves. And it's this whole thing about getting people to understand how do you also counter a lot of those toxic and dangerous narratives that exist. So that's a big part of our work, and that's just like one example. But we've done amazing research around like human rights. We do stuff around gaming and gambling and the harms around that. We do stuff around homelessness. We work for certain brands just around how they can better engage with particular communities or millennials, or whatever they want to do. We do stuff around graduate outcomes. So we just finished an interesting study looking at why is it that in a particular big university in the UK, why the outcomes of graduates who are from a white background compared to those who are not, why is there this massive inequality? So there's a lot of things that we're trying to solve and work with people in order to change.
Mm-hmm. And with your research, Kenny, is there a place that our students can go to look into any of the research that your company has done?
Yeah, so a lot of that will be on our site, which hopefully we can just put in the chat. But then I guess the challenge also with our work is that a lot of it is client and private work. So therefore, it's really up to the clients whether they publish it. But we are doing our best, particularly now, to also work in a way where we get joint intellectual property around stuff so we can share things for the wider public benefit.
Mm-hmm. So a final question for me, and then I'm going to turn to Lord Hastings and allow him to ask a final question. So Kenny, you're not yet 30, but you've lived such a full and dramatic and demanding life already. So as you see all these students who are just hanging on every word, what would you like to leave with them? What's your message to this rising generation?
Thank you. I always love these grand questions at the end. So for me, I'll be honest, and it's very much reflects the season I'm in now, particularly in my life. And when I reflect and look back, for me, it's very much about the importance of patience, right? And this whole sense of, we always tend to overestimate the change that will happen in the next 2 years. However, we always underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. And that's, I know, something that Bill Gates have said. And I feel for me, that very much speaks to the message I want to leave. I think in terms of the journey from since I was in prison till now, it's almost been 10 years. And in the beginning, I could have thought I was going to do this, going to do that. However, I never knew at all in terms of in the next 10, now it's almost 10, what I'll be able to achieve. And I really just really want to just encourage people to, yeah, really be patient and understand that, particularly from a place of faith, you get what's best for you in terms of what God wants for you with that patience. And I truly believe that, yeah, and I know how difficult it is when being patient, where you feel like actually you've got the skills, you've got the talent, you feel like this is your calling and everything else, but sometimes you have to wait, right? Because there's something about where you are right now that life wants to teach you. And until you've learned that, you can't really move on to the next thing. And it's just, for me, this whole patience has just been key. And the reason why I really stress this message, because I understand the pressures in society around everybody having to be so instantaneous and quick about everything, right? We live in a microwave generation where we expect food to be done in a minute, right? We can get burgers in a minute. We can send communication around in seconds. We can go to the train. If we miss the train by a minute, the next one comes in the next week. Everything is so quick. And all of a sudden, when we have parts of our life that are not quick, we can become very impatient. And just to understand that, yeah, there's just something in that beauty, right? Of just patience and understanding the best things will come to those in that who are patient and just wait.
So just a final comment then, Kenny, and thanking you so much for the wisdom you brought to us and to our students, is we were reflecting earlier on about how President Mandela, when he came out of prison as just Nelson Mandela, he chose to forgive. And how important has forgiveness been for you with everything you've had to face?
That's a great question. For me, I would say forgiveness is one of the most least spoken about character traits that I think that actually the greatest leaders actually possess. And so for me, I feel like, particularly on my journey, I've had to forgive in terms of when you think about the state or anything that's happened to me in relation to my own experience, and to not be bitter about it, right? And it's easy for me to like feel like I hate the police, I hate all judges, I hate blah blah blah. However, to be honest, I don't feel like that in any way whatsoever, right? I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to be out. I have 2 close friends who are not, and who are still serving time for this and currently appealing. So for me, I would say like forgiveness is just, yeah, it's vital, right? I don't know any other way to express it outside of, it's allowed me to be able to move on from things, right? And it's that whole thing of like, when you don't forgive, it's like having poison and taking it, and I mean, I'm thinking that someone else is going to suffer as a result, and it's only you.
Kenny, thank you. Thank you for the beauty of those words. Thank you for the shared insight. Thank you for the time you've given us and our students. Thank you, and bless you.
Kenny, let me thank you as well. It's been an honor for us to learn from you and from your life. That's a gift. So our deep thanks to you. And we say now goodbye to all of you. This has been the World's Principal Leader Series from the Stephen R. Covey Leadership Center. See you next time.
All right, we're out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kenny. Fantastic.
Thank you. That was great. This has been a real pleasure.
Now, I would like to depart from our norm for a moment, and I'd like to see if there's one student who has a question for Kenny before we say goodbye.
I have a question. So my name's Noah Turner. I'm just curious to see like what kind of drove you to get into policy creation, and then like for someone that's kind of interested in it, how do you like break into it? Because it seems like it's such an area of such high impact, but it's very technical, very kind of like the walls are up field. And so how did you break into the field?
No, thank you for that question. I feel like it's a very important question. I would say the hardest part is just starting in the first place, right? Because everyone tells you about this whole world of influence, but no one ever really shares how you can get involved in it, right? And it's particularly when you don't want to go through the traditional join a party and start working your way up route, right? Because for me, that was just, even though I spoke about patience, I didn't have the patience for that. But but I would say for me, it was that's why I actually got into research, because it was the one time when I learned that actually, if I'm adding and bringing something valuable to the conversation around something, then what happens as a result is that I can then gather the interest of people who are interested in this topic. So one of the first things which I did do, which I spoke about in the Become a Next video, was the Kenya report. So that was something which, I also did that deliberately because I know that, particularly with millennials, that we love creativity and we love, like, I don't know, doing this video, doing that. And to be honest, a lot of those things are important. When it comes to policy, it's actually about pen to paper. And so for me, it was about, if I can put together this report that gets insights from all these different experts, then I can actually be able to influence people in this area where I want to influence them. And what I also realized, this is my, I would say my, what's the word? What do they call it again? I can't remember the word, but whatever the word is again. In terms of like what, I'm trying to think of the word. Talk about all the time on Snapchat. I can't remember the word is, but who cares? But now, not even epiphany. I'm trying to think what the word is now. Now I'm just stuck. But it doesn't matter. I'm gonna make sure I let it for you. But the key thing is just to do with, like, when you actually do research, all of a sudden I realized that people had the time for me because they knew I was trying to add something valuable to the conversation. MPs, practitioners, CEOs, executives at all different levels were happy to talk to me. Guess what? Because I was now putting together a piece that was going to influence policy and change people's thinking. Whereas before, if I contacted them and said, hi, my name's Kenny, I'm really interested in this and I would like to blah, 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 that probably just goes into spam or gets deleted, because how much people care and do X, Y, Z. And so whereas for me, when I had something valuable to bring to the table, then all of a sudden I saw that things changed and people paid me attention. That's the honest truth. But it was only through me saying to myself in terms of what can I bring, and I had to go over and beyond. So I would say, like, I'm still trying to think of the word when I said that, but who cares? But yeah, the key nugget is just around, I would say research is a brilliant platform for everyone to get involved in and to actually get involved in policy. To be honest, I feel like it can be extremely influential.
Awesome. That answered my questions perfectly. Thank you.
Great answer, Kenny. Well, Kenny's been with us to the Huntsman School at Utah State. He was there when Lord Hastings received the Stephen R. Covey Principle-Centered Leadership Award. So we consider you one of our favorite sons at the Huntsman School. We can't wait for you to come back. And I personally can't wait to see you again, Kenny. Take good care.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you all, hopefully soon.